Hey, it's Mark Slayton, and welcome to the Delighted Customers Podcast. Today I get to bring back one of my favorite people to learn from, Dr. Peter Fader. He's a professor of marketing at the Wharton School, a best-selling author of 3 influential books, and the co-founder of companies like Zodiac, which Nike acquired, and Theta, where he continues to push the boundaries of customer dynamics. Now, if you've ever felt uneasy about airlines or big brands using AI to set prices, you're not alone. Peter's here to unpack the hidden dangers, the massive opportunities, and what every leader needs to understand about how pricing impacts not just revenue today, but customer trust and loyalty for the long run. Whether you're a C-suite leader, a CX pro, or just curious about how AI is shaping the way we all buy and sell, this conversation will give you a new lens, one that could change how you look at pricing forever. Today on the Delighted Customers Podcast, I have a very special returning guest. Peter Fader is a professor of marketing at the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania. He came on the show. He was one of my first guests. He was episode 8 and 9, a 2-part special episode. We featured his book, Customer-Based Audit, where we talked a little bit about customer lifetime value and the valuation of firms. His influence in the realm of customer analytics is far-reaching, marked by impactful books, 3 of them, and hosting awards celebrating his research and teaching. He stands out for his exceptional ability to bridge the gap between academic insights and pragmatic business applications, and a prime illustration of that is Zodiac, his first venture into predictive customer analytics, which Nike acquired back in 2018. He remains passionately dedicated to pushing the boundaries in this field at Theta, and I'm so excited, Pete, to have you back on the show.
Mark, always a pleasure talking to you. I appreciate the opportunity.
You put a post out a little while back when Delta Airlines announced use of AI in their strategic pricing. And let me just share a little bit about the quote from an article from Delta. They're rolling out an AI-driven pricing system that aims to set fares for up to 20% of their flights by the end of 2025, a sharp increase from the 3% of fares determined by AI algorithms in the past. And this is part of a partnership they're doing with Fetcher, a company that specialized in this. And so you warned people that this might be not such a good idea, especially the way they're going about it. So let me just outline a couple of things related to how they plan to do it and how it works. Talking about real-time adjustments reminds me of congestion pricing, and also what you see on the Beltway in the Capital Beltway in Northern Virginia, where pricing goes up if you want to ride in the express lane to like an exorbitant amount. They do fare recommendations as sort of a super analyst working around the clock to update price points and personalized offers. Over time, they hope each fare will be a custom offer specific to each traveler. So with laying out those things, have I done a good job of laying out what exactly we're talking about here?
Well, actually, yes and no. Because the original article I saw on it, exactly as you described. But Delta has walked it back a bit, and even Fetcher itself says, wait a minute, we're not doing anything that's personalized per se. And this is a really, really important issue. Still, it might be a little bit too fine-grained for my taste, even if it's not one-to-one pricing. But there's a bit of disagreement or lack of clarity about just how personalized it really is.
Okay, so before we get into some of the real danger zones, why should this be a big deal to people in the C-suite?
Well, there's the opportunity, and then there's the cost and the risk. The opportunity to set better prices, to make them more flexible, to have them better reflect demand and supply conditions. That's kind of, a golden opportunity, and not just for airlines, but really for any firm. But then there's the risks of either overdoing it and being maybe a little bit too smart, as well as the potential PR backlash, just all kinds of ethical concerns, and even potential legal concerns. So the downside is huge. The upside is huge. How to find the right balance? Well, we're going to find out the hard way.
Well, and so now we have this opportunity, if you want to call it that, through AI, and it's very tempting, right, for to just squeeze as much profit as you can out of your customer base. What do you see? You mentioned some of the dangers relative to customers. Talk about it from a pragmatic standpoint and also sort of a macro standpoint and also from an emotional standpoint.
Sure. So, at a macro standpoint, there's no doubt that airlines want to maximize revenue.
Yeah.
Personally, I think that's a mistake. I don't think that's the right objective. Going back to our previous conversation, they should be trying to maximize the profitability of their customer base, the long run profitability of their customer base. Because when you talk about squeezing all that profitability, what people are going to think, maybe rightly so, is they're going to be gouged. They're going to kind of take all of that from me now, and you know what? That's going to hurt. I'm not sure I'm coming back. I'm not sure I'm going to keep doing this. So if you think about it from a lifetime value standpoint, gouging your customers would be a terrible idea. You're not a charity. You're not giving stuff away here. But if we want to maximize the net present value of the customer base, which is what every firm should do, that really is the fiduciary obligation that they have to their stakeholders. That's going to be different than trying to maximize short-term revenue. It's going to lead to very different outcomes, very different processes, and very different reactions from the customer base and other stakeholders.
So if I could rewind my own, going back many, many years, the 4 Ps of marketing, price made it into one of the 4 Ps. And one of the aspects of it is, yes, it's connected directly to revenue that an organization can bring in, which connects to profit, but also it's somehow connected to the perceived value of the offering, right? And so how does that go haywire with AI type pricing? Or could it?
That's exactly the problem. It can and it will. And this is not necessarily a knock against AI per se. It's easy to kind of paint that as the boogeyman.
Yeah.
But it's the kind of lack of control, the lack of accountability, and maybe just a bit too much flexibility, a bit too much precision on the part of the price setters. That AI just enables us to even if we're not pricing at an individual level, let's just do something that you alluded to, which would be changing pricing at a very granular level, let's say from hour to hour. And sometimes when you start slicing the bologna a little too thin, it can backfire, both from an economic standpoint as well as an emotional one. And again, that's where you're going with this, that price is more than just an economic lever. It is an emotional one, and people just have very strong feelings about the price levels. I mean, even what the specific numbers, if it ends in 00 versus 99, it's amazing how impactful these things can be. People are also very responsive to price changes. So it's not just a matter of what we're charging now, it's what we're charging now to what we were charging yesterday or the last time I bought your products or services. And my belief, and I could be wrong about this, I really don't know Fetcher's algorithms, but I really believe they're leaning heavy duty into the optimization and either ignoring or at least downplaying some of these psychological issues that, again, can lead to backlash and can lead to, underperformance of the algorithms.
So one example, as you just described, is if I'm going from point A to point B on a flight, and I book that flight today, and then I have another flight, I don't know, a month from now, not even that far away, and it's double the price. I'm going to start saying, hey, what happened? What's going on with this particular airlines or offering, right? And that creates some angst for me.
No question. In fact, the single most impactful paper I ever wrote, it was actually 30 years ago, is on this idea of reference price effects, that we all have reference prices. And when we look at the current price of an item, we code it as gains or losses relative to that reference price. Now, the reference price might be the price I last paid, it might be the price that a competitor's offering, it might be the price even of unrelated goods, perhaps. But the idea of reference pricing, the idea, as some folks listening to this might be familiar with the notion of prospect theory. That's a thing that Danny Kahneman won the Nobel Prize for. Well, one of the many things that he and his late co-author Amos Tversky did. This is the way that people react to pricing decisions and pricing changes. And a lot of these optimization algorithms do not account for it. They just look at price in this very objective way, as if we are just bots making these trade-offs between price and quality, but not taking these more nuanced and these more impactful dynamics into account.
So it affects loyalty. It could have a big potential impact on loyalty where I feel like, hey, either you're gouging me or you're playing games with the pricing, and I don't like that.
Exactly. And that consequence, yeah, maybe you'll get me to pay more for that fare or whatever, the cup of coffee or whatever it might be today because I have no choice and I have to do it. But I'm not going to stay with you as long. I'm not going to interact with you as often. I'm not going to, say good things about you. It's easy for us, or it's easy for economically minded people and firms to dismiss some of that stuff, say, nah, that's just fluff, that's just cheap talk. But A, we know that it's not. And B, in this day and age, again, going back to previous conversations we've had, we can quantify the qualitative and measure the impact of it and say, how much are we gaining or losing? And more importantly, how could we make these policies more effective for the long run value of the customer?
So I think that's just so important because you keep reframing it back to the long run. When there's so much pressure, I call it quarteritis, where public companies are trying to meet shareholder and the market's needs. And yet what we're asking here is to say, someone's going to come to you, whether it's from the finance department or product or somewhere else, saying, look, here's on the black and white, you can optimize pricing at 1-2% improvement in pricing could, add millions to the bottom line. What would you say to them?
That by using both the kind of psychological perspectives that I've been alluding to, as well as the statistical models around them that really not only validate that work, but let us operate on it, we can do a better job of projecting what long-run revenue, profitability is going to be through a more appropriate customer-oriented lens. And we can say, yep, you're going to make more money today, but you're going to make less money in the long run. And we can do that in a way that's not just, hey, pay attention to us marketers, but let's do it in financial terms. Let's win over the people in finance and accounting and FP&A to show them that we can help them do their job more effectively by taking some of these metrics, models, and patterns into account. We've had great success with it. As you mentioned, you sold one company, started this new one, Theta, and a big focus of that company is this idea of customer-based corporate valuation. And we have the largest private equity firms in the world asking us, what's the long-run value of that company we're thinking of buying? What's the value of its customers? How much more value can we create and then squeeze out of it? But the more and more recognition that the long run can be and should be quantified. And we've seen it even on the dynamic pricing side. Airlines, they still haven't woken up yet. We have some wonderful case studies working, for instance, with a number of Major League Baseball teams, where a lot of them would start with a more rational, economic, short-term dynamic pricing optimization approach. And we've shown them, you know what, by taking some of these underlying customer behaviors into account, we can come up with better policies that will serve better in the long run. And will also be more holistic, not only looking at what you paid for that ticket, but trying to be more customer-centric. Let's have it spill over to the merchandise that you might buy, whether or not you actually frequent the advertisers who are advertising in the venue. So trying to take both a broader and more psychologically appropriate perspective. Big part of that is, like I said before, don't slice the bologna too thin. A little bit more stability, a little bit more predictability. Instead of having prices bouncing all over, it's better for everyone.
So I'm curious to double tap on two things. One, in this order, if it's okay, is if you could go one layer deeper, not all the way down in the weeds, but one layer deeper into how, and you, by the way, you do a fantastic job. I can only imagine the level of granularity you get into in the classroom with your classes on this algorithms and so forth. But just one layer, like sort of from a logic flow of how you get to that point of short-term profitability and connection to these price. For example, we're talking about price now as a driver of loyalty or customer value, and the long-term value for the business owners. CX professionals know that every touch point matters, but managing the entire customer journey can be challenging, especially for enterprises due to disjointed data, difficulty aligning stakeholders, and struggling to secure executive support. And that's where JourneyTrack comes in. JourneyTrack integrates journey mapping management and measurement, allowing you to pinpoint friction, optimize experiences, and demonstrate the ROI of CX initiatives. So you can align teams, break down silos, and then you can track improvements in real time. With JourneyTrack, you can get visibility across every channel and touch point. No more guesswork, just clear insights and measurable results. Join the CX leaders who transform journeys into improved experiences with impactful business outcomes, like reduced churn and increased customer lifetime value. Visit journeytrack.io today and see how better journeys lead to better business.
Love it. And it is so important. Goes back to my training as a math major at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology 40 plus years ago. I was on track to become an actuary. You know, the people who kind of set the insurance rates.
Yeah.
And they know to not get too granular. They're not going to say, how old are you, Mark Slayton, going to be when you die? They know that while they can come up with the best guess about that, it's probably wrong. They wouldn't want to be held accountable for it. So instead, they're going to say people who share the same characteristics as you, the same relevant behavioral characteristics as you, what percent of that micro segment will live to be 85 years old? It makes all the sense in the world, right? Again, you don't want insurance policies doing the one-to-one thing. Again, not only would it be kind of creepy and unethical and perhaps illegal, it would be ineffective because the variability in our estimate of any one person is huge. So I build the world's best lifetime value models, but I know my limitations. Now, yes, I can tell you what you're worth, but I don't necessarily want to be held accountable for it nearly as much as I'd rather make a statement about the micro segment of the Mark Slaytons. What are they collectively going to be worth? And what kinds of policies should we develop for them? So I'm not into the one-to-one thing. And it's not only because of the ethical, legal, all that sort of thing. It's because statistically, it's really, really hard to justify that. I do want to get granular, but not too granular, because we know the limits of the statistics.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way of describing it. And maybe you've answered, you tell me, answered the next question, which is connected to that, which is, I think offline you described this to me as the third rail, but is this personalized pricing? What is the danger of that? And are we really talking about getting too granular?
So the big danger is, what I don't know what the biggest danger is. There's a lot of big dangers.
Yeah.
One is just the kind of PR backlash. So no one remembers this anymore. When Amazon, which does a lot with dynamic pricing, and we got to really clarify the distinction, but sometime around 2000, they ran one little bitty experiment where they got into personalized pricing, where you and I would see different prices for the same book at the same time. Incredible backlash. You know, the thing went viral, and they backed away from it. And as far as I know, they've never tried it again. So people just don't like the idea that you and I at the same time for the same item could be paying different prices. Dynamic pricing, fine. Dynamic pricing saying that you're paying a different price than the person next to you on the airplane, but that's because she bought the ticket 2 weeks earlier, and so she got a better price. That's okay. You would have gotten that price too if you had bought it back then. Dynamic pricing, cool. Again, we don't want it to be too granular where we're changing the price every second, because again, we start getting in the weeds. But kind of gradually, occasionally changing dynamic pricing, I'm a big advocate of that. The other problem with the personalized pricing, and especially when you start bringing the AI in, is that not only will it get too granular, but the factors upon which it might make those decisions might start to get into issues of legality. Because we can't discriminate on the base of gender or race and other kinds of personal characteristics. I'm not a lawyer. Don't push me on it. But once we start bringing in the AI and we start looking at people's media habits, or who they're connected to in the social network, or what other kinds of products they've purchased, in theory that stuff is kosher, but it does start getting real close to that third rail. And if we find that certain demographic groups tend to do more things than others, then we could find ourselves in a whole lot of trouble. First degree price discrimination is just a very dangerous thing to be working with, both because of the perceptions and because of the legalities, and to me, the statistical issues.
Love it. So we talked also a little bit offline about the possibility of other industries adopting this. And what do you see as maybe those industries that could be ripe for falling into this trap? And what advice would you say to them?
Well, for one thing, is move slowly. That's really important. Again, we want to dip our toes in the water with dynamic pricing. Like I said, I had the privilege of working with Major League Baseball, and it was really fun to work with a number of clubs where I think, I won't name names, but one club said, you know what, we'll just try doing this one section in the stadium. Let's just try that. Other clubs would say, well, we'll just do a couple of games. And even then, we'll just have kind of maybe two tiers of prices. So it was starting slowly, it was experimenting, it was looking at the results very, very objectively and trying to do so not just which one made us more money over the time that we did that campaign, but the long run implications. Did it chase season ticket holders away? Did it get people to engage more and spend more on things in the store at the concession stands? So having again a broader long-term perspective on it. It's such a tempting drug. I mean that article about Delta gained so much attention. Again, some people saying dangerous, other people saying opportunity. That with great power comes great responsibility, and we just need to look slowly, carefully, thoughtfully. Look, the fact that Delta said they're doing it just for 20% of folks, that's great. That's terrific. That's a good sign. And again, I think that the changes that they're talking about might not be nearly as dramatic and concerning as what some of the original press suggested. So they might be okay here. And for the most part, Delta is not only a wonderful airline, but they're pretty smart about things. So we might be jumping to conclusions there. But it is an interesting cautionary tale for other firms that aren't as smart, that don't have quite the analytic savvy, that don't have the experience of running these kinds of experiments. Take it slowly, but at the same time, try it. Don't be afraid to try it. A lot of companies said, we're just never going to do that, never going to do that. We don't want to even take that first baby step because it's a slippery slope. That's a mistake as well. I think that thoughtful, dynamic pricing is actually, I think, not only smart, I think it's getting to the point where it's going to be kind of an obligation for companies to be doing it, maybe disclosing some of the limits of what they do, and maybe even being held accountable by their investors and other stakeholders for doing it appropriately.
Yeah. One of the things that comes to mind is you're sharing, and I think about Theta, and if I'm listening and I'm a business owner, so I think in Major League Baseball and some of the larger organizations that I'm sure you guys do work with, but there's a long tail, of small, medium-sized businesses that really drive this country. And I'm sure they're listening closely about, well, part of the question is, well, I don't nearly have enough data to make those kind of decisions. Is that true?
Well, it's kind of interesting and almost ironic, because if you're really a teeny tiny business and you're just selling, bespoke handmade crafts, then you are doing, I don't know, it sounds so evil, first degree price discrimination. And you're going to figure out what that person's willing to pay, and you're going to charge them appropriately. You don't necessarily have any list prices. So when you're a teeny tiny company and you're figuring it out, there will be a bit of negotiation. There will be a bit of flexibility. You're just trying to figure out what this stuff is worth and what people are willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
The issue starts as you start to scale the business. And instead of leaving those pricing decisions in the hands of the founder, and as you start having, multiple stores, you're operating in multiple business units, that's when you want to start to standardize things. That's when you just want to start bringing in the algorithms. And at first, when you have this sense that you don't have a lot of data, let's just figure out what the price is or the pricing policy. Let's lock it in and stay with it. We have bigger, more important things to worry about. But at some point, you kind of owe it to yourself to start saying, maybe we could get a little bit more sophisticated with the pricing. A big part of it is data, is having granular customer level data to tag and track, to know not just how responsive the customer is to our price changes, but how differentially responsive different customers are, and tying those differential price responses back to their lifetime value. If we find out that our best customers are the ones who are most price sensitive, which by the way usually isn't the case, then we got to be really careful about that. Maybe we use just a much simpler, clearer pricing policy. But if we find out that our best customers are relatively price insensitive because they know we're going to give them a good deal, they know we're going to treat them well, they know it's much more about than price, it's service selection, quality, convenience, then maybe we have a little bit more wiggle room there. So it's really important to understand how the customers differ from each other in pricing, price sensitivity, in value, and just broader engagement.
Great advice. I learn so much every time we are together. And thank you so much. I want to end this conversation with the same question I ask all my guests, which is, what delights you as a customer?
What delights me as a customer is service and it's not just necessarily rolling out the red carpet. It's not just kind of giving me free stuff that I might have paid for otherwise. I think that often is a mistake. Is incredible insight that goes beyond the kind of training playbook. I'm going to tell you a story here. My favorite customer service experience. I have a thing, and maybe this makes me a bad person. I don't know. I like Ferragamo shoes. They're just great. And so I had a pair of Ferragamos. I kind of wore them out, and I went to the Ferragamo store on Fifth Avenue, New York. I walked in there. I said, I need a new pair of shoes. I mean, literally standing at the door. And this woman looks down at my feet and she says, you are wearing an 11D. You need a 10.5E.
Oh my gosh.
Bought 2 pairs of shoes.
Wow.
It's that kind of thing. It is surprise and delight, as we often talk about it.
Yeah.
But it's unscripted surprise and delight. And that just shows that this person knows her stuff. This company knows its stuff. That's amazing.
Love it. And you know your stuff. And I thank you so much for returning back as a guest on the Delighted Customers podcast.
Mark, anytime. I'm happy to talk to you, and I hope that people heed the message.
Thank you for listening to the Delighted Customers podcast. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to hit subscribe or follow. We've got incredible guests coming up and cutting-edge content you won't want to miss. Want to take your skills to the next level? Check out my leadership courses designed specifically for CX and change professionals at empoweredcx.com. You'll also find all the show notes, links, and resources from today's episode there. And if you know a brand that would be a great fit to sponsor the show and reach our community of experience and change leaders, send them our way. Until next time, keep transforming experiences and leading change.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along. Which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ziprecruiter.com/zip. That's ziprecruiter.com/zip. ziprecruiter.com/zip.
Hey, this is Dan Harris, host of the 10% Happier podcast. I'm here to tell you about a new series we're running this September on 10% Happier. The goal is to help you do your life better. The series is called Reset. It's all about hitting the reset button in many of the most crucial areas of your life. Each week, we'll tackle a topic like how to reset your nervous system, how to reset your relationships, how to reset your career. We're going to bring on top-notch scientists and world-class meditation teachers to give you deep insights and actionable advice. It's all delivered with our trademark blend of skepticism, humor, credibility, and practicality. 10% Happier is self-help for smart people. Come join the party.